to various research institutions across the country, has conducted courtesy visits to various research institutions across the country, engaging with leadership and research units to introduce and discuss the objective of this training opportunity. We sincerely thank each institution for the welcome reception, the openness and their leadership, and the time they generously dedicated to our discussions. Ladies and gentlemen, this initiative is more than just a training program. It has a bold investment in the capacity of our researchers and the system that support them. By enhancing research management practice and fostering the development of individual researchers, we are laying a foundation for the impactful, relevant, and sustainable research outcomes that can drive national development. We are particularly proud that this program will culminate in a research competition where participants will showcase their skills, creativity, and commitment to research excellence, with award to be given to the most outstanding contributions. I wish to express our deep appreciation to UNESCO NATCOM for their unwavering support and partnership in this endeavor. Their contribution has been instrumental in bringing this vision to reality. Special thanks goes to WARIMA, West Africa Research Innovation Management Association, for accepting to lead this training program. WARIMA has set great example when it comes to research management in our sub-region. Particularly, I've benefited from 2 or 3 of their trainings held in Dakar, and I learned a lot about what research management is all about. For this reason, the reason why we hired them, I call on all of you, the participants and the institutions, for us to join hands, for us to join efforts to build a strong, vibrant, and responsive research culture in the Gambia, as enshrined in our National Research Policy 2024 to 2029. I wish all participants success in the training ahead and look forward to the initiative, ideas, and solutions that will emerge in this training. Since we have little time, I thank you for your attention.
I would like to start this statement by congratulating MOHAS for getting approval and funding for this PP project, which is titled Institutional and Human Capacity Building in Basic Science, Technology, Research, Innovation, and Engineering for Sustainable Development. This project is expected to enhance research capabilities in Gambian higher education, expose youth academics on research management dynamics, improve research managers' fundraising skills, develop their grant management competence, and train research administrators on grant application. This project comes at a very crucial time when the Gambia, under the leadership of MOHAS and other research partners, are working hard to integrate research into national development goals and priorities. The development of Gambia national research policies and regulatory frameworks and other research governance and management tools are clear testimonies to the country's vision for promoting a comprehensive and quality national research culture that enhances evidence-based decision-making for national development. Last week, the National Commission for UNESCO and the Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, as James had already said, we had engaged on an outreach tour to key higher education and research institutions in the Gambia. These institutions were engaged to introduce to them the project objectives and planned activities, but also we were able to make some findings about some of their institutional research management needs, capabilities, and readiness for such a crucial project. This information will prepare or will help prepare the organizers and facilitators to take relevant and necessary action in making this research management capacity development initiative a fundamental success with lasting impact. The institutions were excited about the initiative, thus giving us hope that the objective of this project would be achieved. At this point, I would also like to sincerely thank all the institutions that warmly welcome us, the Gambia National Commission for UNESCO, also the team from MOHAS. We express our sincere appreciation on your warm hospitality and readiness and sense of vision for this initiative to be properly implemented in your respective institutions. We call on the respective tertiary and research institutions invited to participate in this project to demonstrate their new acquired competence in their various research institutions. The strengthening of research management capacities can promote effective and efficient utilization of resources from research innovation funds and international grants, enhance research quality, and improve the overall reputation and success of our research and tertiary education system. Efficient research management helps universities attract funding, ensures accountability and compliance with research regulations. The NATCOM looks forward to actively participating in all the interesting activities of this project, and we hope this will be an impactful project in our institutions.
And what is WARIMA? WARIMA is an association of research managers across the West Africa sub-region. The structure as to how we take research management is one that you get accountants going into research management, scientists get into research management, all kinds of people getting into research management. But it is a specific discipline that you need to learn, you need to practice, and you need to fine-tune your skills on. So these associations are spread across not just Africa, globally, to create a networking opportunity for practicing managers to share knowledge and learn from each other, and also undertake the significant level of capacity building that you will see that we tend to do. The West Africa end covers from us here down to Nigeria. We are spread into Anglophone, Francophone, Lusophone countries. We've got individual members, we've got institutional members, and we drive funding from, we go to the ministry. We go to the ministries to receive funding, and as you would expect, not much can be obtained from them, but we also get funding from other international sources as well, okay? Our scope is to help institutions to focus on the things that are necessary to create the enabling environment within which research is conducted, but not the research itself. So if you look at the challenges that individual researchers and institutions face in our part of the world, the number one thing is funding. Okay? When our governments don't fund research, other international donors will fund research. But they want to give the research to the best ideas, the best proposals. and they've got a structure by which they provide that funding. Knowledge about what funding opportunities are available and how to ensure that we put forward our best ideas to secure that funding is something that we need to be able to have. If we don't have it, the world is a competitive world, then we are going to lose out. So funding is a critical part, not just for the early career scientists, but more so for even our very senior scientists who are in our own environment. Once we get that funding, we need to manage it, the grants, ethically and as responsibly as possible. That needs to be known. You need to understand what are the ethical requirements within which you need to do your research. So we need to educate ourselves about that. Once grants come into our environments, it's becoming a lot more complicated now than it used to be before. You've got a contract that you sign out. You've got obligations that you need to meet. You've got liabilities that you need to ensure that you don't run into trouble here and there. So all of that becomes a lot more complicated. If you pick up a vaccine from a drug company and you go and administer it into a population and you run into trouble, who is responsible? Is it you, the researcher? Is it the vaccine company? The vaccine companies definitely want to pass those responsibilities over to you, the researcher. You want to pass it to the institution. And all of that is complicated knowledge that you need to be able to learn how we do it. Again, research is a very collaborative environment. Okay? If people want to study the impact of a vaccine on children, for example, you may need to have 200 children from Gambia, 200 children from Senegal, 200 from Mali, and you put all of that data together for you to be able to get the deductions that you actually need. So managing partnerships and collaborations, again, for our own part of the world, is a significant part of research management. And again, you'll understand power dynamics, those who have money and those who don't have money, how you actually ensure that your own contributions are not taken for granted is a significant issue that we all need to deal with. When we are sitting in institutions and we see our researchers begin to get into partnerships and collaboration, we need to create the environment that helps to protect them and protect the institutions in which that research is conducted. Then above all, when we do our publications, our scientists want to do publications. But that's not where it stops. The publications create knowledge. That knowledge has got to be utilized either as policy or further translated into commercialization, licensure, and all of that. The moment you begin to get on that trajectory, it's a whole different mind-boggling game all along. So this is what research management tends to focus on to help institutions and the people that they put in that responsibility to be capacitized so that they're able to manage it as strongly and as effectively as possible. We look at research management at the level of the individual and at the level of the institution. At the level of the institution, you need to create an environment that allows the growth of young scientists within your environment. And that's what comes in the scope of what we call researcher development. So within the scope of research management, researcher development is a scope, and that's what Professor Asanjay does all of his life. After many years, he's getting to the twilight of his career, and his focus now is to help young researchers grow, and how to support them is what we have brought him into the scope of the program that we want to run with James, so that he takes on a number of researchers within our institutions and takes them on career development and research grant writing. But all of this is for one purpose, and that purpose is, if you go to conferences and they show out where are the outputs of research coming from, yeah, Africa will account for what, 1, 2, 3% of global research output. That's a story that many of us have had. We need to change that dynamic. We've just come from the EDCDB forum in Kigali last week, and when the EDCDB had a bibliographic of where their publications were coming from, the same story. South Africa was accounting for the greater majority of publications out of Africa, and West Africa was having its own usual gray whenever those maps are presented. This is with an aim to help institutions to begin to change that trajectory, and it is an aim to support Gambian researchers to be able to...
Some international researchers and Gambian researchers in the Gambia as well. So I'm part of that advisory council for the ministry when they were formulating the research policy and the research agenda or strategy for that matter. And one basic thing we said, if you have to promote research, there are a few key things. One, there has to be national vision for research. And on the basis of that vision, you have to have national strategy for research. But it doesn't stop there. And what I have noticed in my West African networks and training people in West Africa is that there's one fundamental lack, and that is the institutions themselves do not have coherent research strategy. And institutions have to have coherent research strategy that will align to the government strategy. That's the higher education strategy. So you align it. So each institution should decide what kind of research do I want to do to impact. And that comes to the vision itself, because when you want to create research, and it's about impactful research, that is, you don't just want to do research anyhow. Research has to be done. Anybody cannot just do research anyhow. And incidentally, I just, about 5 months, 6 months ago, I was in Johannesburg giving this grant writing to postdocs, and these are senior postdocs. And I asked one major question, which to my surprise, many of them could not even answer, and that is the definition of research. They couldn't answer that. All the statements they were saying were all wrong. And I said, you cannot understand what research is all about and then want to apply for a grant, because the definition of research itself embodies the process, the planning process for you to build a proposal. And you cannot build a proposal if you don't understand what research is all about. And that was the fundamental thing. So what I want to say is that you can build your research management in your institution, but if you don't have competent researchers, you don't head anywhere. Because don't assume that research you can get money to do research anyhow. Research has to be competitive, has to be impactful, and therefore you have to give that soft skill training to researchers. These are, when you have your master's and a PhD, that doesn't necessarily mean you have learned the soft skill of actual research leadership. You haven't. You don't know it. Because most of them who would attempt to apply for international funding, they always fail. And they come, I've tried to apply, I'm not successful. I said, there is no rocket science about it. There are some skills you need to know to really apply and compete for research funding outside. Government cannot fund, research is expensive. The funding of research cannot be left entirely in the hands of government because research is expensive. It's the owners of the researchers to actually attract the money. And that's how their promotion comes. And another element to consider here in actually building the soft skills and the competence of the researchers is to actually create their career structure. Because if I'm a researcher, I'm in a university, I have the competency to apply for international grant and get funded. I did the research, I published it, it went into high impact journal. I need to know my next step and what that means for me in my professional career. And if the institution doesn't have professional career structure, how a postdoc, early postdoc can move into a mid-postdoc, from a mid-postdoc to a project scientist, from a project scientist to a program scientist, and this in a university is equivalent to research fellow, from research fellow to assistant professor, from assistant professor to associate professor, from associate professor to professorship. And this is not dictated or underlined by teaching. There has to be the academic criteria of research and knowledge generation that you have done. And this is what is lacking in most of our African institutions. The competency of research is a little bit, we need to push that a little bit forward. We have very bright people, and Dembo alluded to this. I have sat in panels where I have reviewed international funding schemes for postdocs. And I always give this lecture, and I give them the graphical representations of it. I think our institutions have one fundamental thing that they have to strive very hard on, and that is to build the young researchers to grow. When I sit to this panel, we interview, and when I see these West Africans, he alluded to the Africans contributing a low percentage in research output. And this is true, but particularly serious in West Africa. When I look at how these young Africans, when they are interviewed or when they're given presentations to do, 10, 5-minute presentation about the overview of their proposal, you see they're very bright, but they lack the confidence. And, somehow they just messed up in the answering of their questions. Why? Because one, we have not institutionalized mentorship in our institutions. You ask these guys, they don't have mentors. Mentors have even never reviewed their proposals before they came to those international setting interviews, which is serious. And in contrast, the South Africans, when they stand and present, you really know that these people have prepared hard, and they know what they are doing. And their proposals become top-notch. And so we have the bright young guys within the university, but we work on assumptions that these people can just do research and get through. No, they have to be trained, they have to be mentored, and they have to acquire that training, that soft skills training in grant writing and manuscript writing skills. And this is what I want to emphasize so that you can send back to the university that it's not only good to have a good competent project managers to manage our research, but we have to develop our researchers to really be competitive and to do impactful research. Impactful research, not all proposals are good and warrant money to be given for those proposals. No, they need to be reviewed and see the real impactfulness of that proposal in order to be funded. And this is how research institutions grow. Because the more you publish impactful research, the more they are cited, that is the citation level is high, that's the H index is high, and that university ranking becomes high and well known. That's how universities grow, nothing else. It's by doing competitive, impactful research. So the other thing I just want to mention here, that in these three aspects must be considered. One, the vision, the strategy, but the research competency of young researchers, for them to grow in their soft skills and for them to understand the career structure that would propel them to move forward. But the other thing that's what Dembo mentioned, and that is the research support office. Researchers do not need to be project managers to manage their research. They have to be done by the research support office. And the research support office, that's his job, to make sure that institutions have competent research management unit to really support the researchers. I remember many years ago when Professor Ka was there, he invited me to, I think UNESCO also funded that, to really understand how do they disburse money to researchers. And all what I said, I asked, who manages the money? They said, we disperse to individual researchers. I just laughed. I said, if you, as a researcher, you give me money, I'll chop it. I will not do research. That's not how it is done. It is not done that way. You don't give researchers the money. You give it to the research management office, and the finance office for them to coordinate and do the purchasing, do whatever the researcher needs for the researcher. The researcher's job is just to implement his research ideas. That's all. And so we need to get that improved and always consider. And the last one I would want to point out to which government needs to always consider is that researchers need a good research environment. If you train researchers, you train research managers, and government is not investing in the environment, for them to be competitive, you will not go ahead. An example, I can give you an example. If you have a very bright postdoctoral fellow who has competed for money and got it, let's say Wellcome Trust funded him to be a senior research fellow, attracted this money and supposed to do immunology, he gets to the lab, he realized that the lab doesn't have the necessary machine, for him to generate the data. He will go away. And that is the reason of the brain drain in West Africa particularly. Not that the postdocs don't want to stay. Those who have PhDs and are postdocs or senior postdocs, not that they don't want to stay. Most of them don't care about salary, but where they can work to compete and generate their data. If the government doesn't invest in the research environment, in their laboratories, whatever they need, if government doesn't invest, then you will not develop researchers in the country. That's a fact. We'll be doing all this just and waste our money. We have to also consider building the research ecosystem that is supporting the research environment. There must be dedicated budget to invest in universities to build their environment so that researchers can stay and do their research because they know they can work in their country and become competitive just as much as other postdocs who are doing similar work outside the country. So that's what I want to say, and I hope that will be, a good reminder. I'm sure the Ministry of Education are aware of this, and just want to remind. So I'm sorry if I digress too much or if I become too academic. So
it is with great honor and a deep sense of commitment that I officially launch the Research Management and Researcher Development Training Project, an initiative of the Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, MOHAS, with the valued support of UNESCO NATCOM. This project comes at a critical time when MOHAS has just envisioned the implementation of the Gambia research regulations and in the evolution of research globally. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the changing roles of research funders have shifted the landscape significantly. Research has become more collaborative, interdisciplinary, and global in nature. The traditional notion of the one-man researcher is rapidly fading. In today's world, whether in science, engineering, medicine, or even in the social sciences, the complexity of challenges we face demands teamwork, diversity of thought, and shared expertise, and building research management capabilities. The rationale is simple, but powerful. Two or more people working together can produce better, more impactful results than one person working in isolation. Therefore, the involvement of UNESCO, NATCOM, and WARIMA is highly laudable and must not just be encouraged, it must be institutionalized. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, MOHAS has placed strategic emphasis on building a strong, supportive infrastructure around research. One of the key policy priorities is the development of a robust research management offices within our higher education and research institutions. These offices are expected to become the administrative backbone of research activities, facilitating the processes necessary to manage externally funded research programs effectively and transparently. A well-functioning research management office should be able to do the following: disseminate timely and accurate information on available funding opportunities. 2, interpret and communicate the policies, procedures, and compliance requirements of funding organizations. Support researchers in proposal writing, and submission, including navigating electronic grant portals. Guide researchers from pre-award through contracting to post-award management, ensuring adherence to grant requirements. Lastly, provide oversight for research compliance, ethics, and financial accountability. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is therefore our expectation that the participants of this training will leave equipped with the knowledge, tools, and confidence to play these critical roles within their various institutions. The Ministry further expects this capacity initiative to align with the Gambia's National Research Regulation Framework, ensuring a structured, ethical, and impactful approach to research across the country. In conclusion, I wish to once again thank our partners at UNESCO NATCOM for the valuable support they have rendered to the ministry, our trainers, WARIMA, and all stakeholders involved in making this project a reality. Let us continue to foster an environment where research excellence thrives, not as a solitary endeavor, but as a collaborative mission for national development and global relevance. With these remarks, I hereby declare, on behalf of the Honorable Minister, the launching of this project. I thank you all for your kind attention.